Most financial content tells you everything you're doing wrong. This one does the opposite, because the research on financial behavior shows that people consistently underestimate how well they're already doing, which leads to frustration, comparison paralysis, and giving up on progress that's already happening. Let's look at 15 signs that you're actually ahead of the curve, whether you feel like it or not. Sign 1. You have more than $1,000 in savings. Nearly 40% of American adults couldn't cover an unexpected $400 expense without borrowing money or selling something. If you have $1,000 in a savings account right now, you are already ahead of a significant portion of the country. Not comfortable, but ahead. The most recent Bankrate survey on emergency savings found that 57% of Americans cannot cover a $1,000 expense from existing savings. 57%. That's the majority of the country. Think about what that means in practice. The average unexpected car repair in the US runs $1,600. The average medical emergency copay, including deductibles, is around $1,300. Without $1,000 saved, either of those events immediately becomes a credit card problem. A $1,600 car repair charged to a card at 22% APR, paid at the minimum payment, takes 3.5 years to pay off and generates $736 in interest. The person with $1,000 saved pays zero interest, handles the repair, and rebuilds the emergency fund within 2 months. That's the difference between one financial problem and a cascading chain of problems. The $1,000 in your savings account is not just money, it's a firewall. Sign 2. You don't carry a credit card balance. The average American household carrying credit card debt owes approximately $6,000 to $8,000 at an average interest rate above 20%. If you pay your balance in full every month, or if you don't use credit cards at all, you've eliminated one of the most expensive financial habits available to Americans. The absence of a bad habit is an asset. Sign 3. You have any money invested outside your spending account. A 401k, an IRA, a brokerage account with even $500 in it. If your money is somewhere earning returns rather than just sitting and checking, you've broken the most common wealth-building barrier: starting. The vast majority of people in their 20s and early 30s have zero invested outside of a checking account. Roughly 56% of American households do not own any stocks, not even a single index fund share. Any investment is better than no investment. And the person with $500 in a brokerage account earning 9% annually will have $55,000 in 40 years without adding a single dollar more. The person with zero invested will have exactly zero. Vanguard's How America Saves report, one of the most comprehensive annual analyses of American retirement behavior, found that the median 401k balance for Americans in their 40s is $38,000. The median. Meaning half of Americans in what should be their peak wealth-building decade have less than $38,000 in their primary retirement vehicle. The Financial Planning Guidelines suggests you should have roughly your full annual salary saved by age 30 and 3 times your salary by age 40. So someone earning $80,000 in their 40s should have $240,000, and the median person has $38,000. The gap isn't a small shortfall. It's a structural crisis in slow motion. But here's the point. If you have anything invested outside a checking account, you are ahead of the median American in their 40s. The bar is genuinely that low. And $500 invested in an S&P 500 index fund in 1984 would be worth approximately $52,000 today. The starting amount matters far less than the starting date. Sign 4. You know your approximate net worth. Most Americans cannot tell you their net worth within $10,000. If you know roughly what you own and what you owe, you're operating with a level of financial self-awareness that most people actively avoid. Knowing is uncomfortable sometimes. It's also the prerequisite to improving. Sign 5. You've refused a purchase you couldn't really afford. This sounds obvious. It is remarkably uncommon. Buy now, pay later, credit card minimums, I'll figure it out later. These are the mechanisms that allow people to perpetually live beyond their means without confronting the gap. If you've said no to something you wanted but couldn't afford, without using debt to bridge the gap, you exercised financial muscle that many people never develop. Sign 6. You have a retirement account with any balance at all. The average retirement savings for Americans in their 40s is approximately $77,000. Median savings, meaning half have more and half have less, is under $40,000. If you have a 401k or IRA with anything in it, you're doing better than the statistical middle. Sign 7. You understand compound interest. This isn't about being smart, It's about having received or sought out financial information that most people never got. The understanding that money earns returns, that then earn their own returns. That $10,000 growing at 9% for 40 years becomes $314,000 without adding a single dollar, is knowledge that changes financial behavior. Most people conceptually know compound interest exists. The people who understand it emotionally, who feel the urgency of starting now because of it, are rare. One of the fastest ways to internalize compounding is the rule of 72. Divide 72 by your annual return rate, and the result is roughly how many years it takes to double your money. At 9%, your money doubles every 8 years. At 12%, every 6 years. Most people hear this and nod politely. The people who actually feel it, who carry it around in their heads as a living calculation, make fundamentally different decisions. Here is what the rule of 72 looks like in practice. $10,000 invested at age 25 at 9% annual return. Age 33, $20,000. Age 41, $40,000. Age 49, $80,000. Age 57, $160,000. Age 65, $320,000. The same $10,000 invested 10 years later, at age 35, reaches $80,000 by age 65. The 10-year delay cost $240,000, not because of anything complicated, because the doubling cycles had one fewer run. The person who starts at 25 gets 5 doubles. The person who starts at 35 gets 4. That one missing double is $160,000 out of a $320,000 total. Half the outcome, gone. This is why starting matters more than the amount. Sign 8. You've automated any financial behavior. An automatic savings transfer. A 401k contribution. An automatic IRA contribution. Any financial behavior that you've made a default rather than a choice is a sign of financial maturity. Behavioral economics consistently shows that automated financial behaviors are sustained at far higher rates than manual ones. If you've set up any automation, you've built a system that works without willpower. The research on this is striking. Brigitte Madrian and Dennis Shea's landmark study on automatic 401k enrollment found that simply making enrollment the default, rather than requiring an opt-in, increased participation rates from approximately 37% to over 85%. The behavior didn't change. The default did. When saving is the automatic behavior and spending takes the effort, you save more. When spending is automatic and saving takes effort, you save less. Automation is not laziness. It's engineering your financial environment to work with human behavior instead of against it. Sign 9. You know what your recurring expenses are. Most Americans cannot list their top 5 monthly expenses within 10% accuracy. If you can sit down right now and tell me roughly what you spend on housing, transportation, food, and utilities, and the numbers you give are close to reality, you have basic financial awareness that most people lack. Sign 10. You've never had a payday loan. Payday loans charge annualized interest rates of 300 to 600%. The average payday loan borrower pays back $430 for a $375 loan. These products exist to trap people in debt cycles, and they're disturbingly common in the U.S. 12 million Americans use payday loans annually. If you've never needed one, that's a financial stability sign. The reason payday loans persist isn't because people don't know they're expensive. Most borrowers are acutely aware the rates are bad. They persist because for someone with no savings buffer and an immediate bill, a 400% APR loan is still a better option than an eviction notice. The absence of payday loan use in your financial history means you've always had enough of a buffer, either savings, family support, or credit access, to navigate short-term cash gaps without resorting to predatory products. That buffer is not a given. It's a sign of relative financial stability that millions of American households don't have. Sign 11. You think about money in terms of time. This one is subtle. Financially literate people often convert prices into working hours. An $80 dinner is 2 hours of work. A $300 jacket is 8 hours. This mental conversion, which personal finance researchers call the time value of consumption, dramatically reduces impulse spending. If you naturally think about purchases in terms of what it costs in hours of your life, you've developed a financial intuition that most people never access. Researchers at UCLA found something important about this habit. People who routinely convert prices to hours of labor make significantly more deliberate purchase decisions, experience lower rates of buyer's remorse, and save at higher rates than people who think about purchases in purely monetary terms. The mechanism is straightforward. Attaching a concrete time cost to spending makes the trade-off visceral rather than abstract. This jacket costs $300 is an abstract statement. This jacket costs 8 hours of my life is a physical reality. One you can feel. When you frame purchases as hours of your time, the question changes from, can I afford this, to, is this worth this much of my life? Those two questions produce very different answers, and the second one produces much better financial outcomes. The people who habituate this thinking don't need elaborate budgeting systems. The filter runs automatically. Sign 12. You don't panic about market drops. If you've held investments through a significant market correction, a 10%, 20%, or 30% drop, without selling, you've demonstrated a financial behavior that most retail investors fail at. Study after study shows that individual investors consistently sell at the bottom and buy near peaks. Research from Morningstar found that the average investor's returns lag the funds they own by 2 to 3% annually, due entirely to behavioral mistakes: buying high, selling low, chasing performance. Staying in through volatility is not passive, it's one of the most active and difficult financial behaviors there is. The investor who held through 2022's 18% market decline and didn't sell outperformed the panic seller by 42% when the market recovered in 2023. That behavioral discipline is rare and valuable. Dalbar, the financial research firm that has tracked investor behavior annually for 3 decades, puts a precise number on what panic costs. Their 2023 analysis of the last 30 years found that the average equity mutual fund investor earned 6.81% annually. The S&P 500 itself returned 10.15% annually over the same period. The gap is 3.34 percentage points. That sounds modest. It compounds into devastation. A $100,000 portfolio earning 10.15% for 30 years becomes $1.87 million. The same portfolio earning 6.81% for 30 years becomes $730,000. The behavioral tax, the cost of panic selling, of timing the market wrong, of flinching at corrections, is $1.14 million on a single $100,000 investment. Not lost to fees, not lost to bad stocks, lost to the investor's own decisions in moments of fear. If you have ever held through a market drop and not sold, you have preserved a return that most retail investors have historically failed to capture. That restraint is worth more than most people will ever calculate. Sign 13. You carry adequate insurance. Health insurance, auto insurance, renters or homeowners insurance, life insurance if you have dependents. The underinsured are one bad event away from financial catastrophe. If your coverage is current and appropriate to your situation, you've addressed a financial vulnerability that millions of Americans live with every day. Sign 14. You've increased your savings rate at any point in your life. Going from saving 5% to saving 8%. Going from saving nothing to saving $200 a month. Any voluntary increase in your savings rate at any point is evidence that you've understood the core of wealth building and acted on it. Most people maintain the same savings behavior for years. Sign 15. You're watching this video. Genuinely. The research on financial literacy shows that one of the strongest predictors of better financial outcomes is actively seeking financial education. The average person who watches financial content, reads about investing, and engages with money concepts, even casually, makes demonstrably better financial decisions than the person who doesn't. The curiosity that led you here is itself a sign. If you checked off 5 or more of these, you're ahead of the majority of Americans in financial behavior. Even if your account balances don't feel impressive yet, the account balances follow the behaviors. The behaviors come first. Where are you on the list? How many did you check? Tell me in the comments, and let me know which one surprised you most. Which sign you weren't expecting to be on the list. Hit like if this felt different from most financial content. Subscribe because next week we're running the real math on $500 per month into dividend stocks for 10 years. And the numbers might shock you.